Hey Starshines, Sylvia-Moonbeam here with an episode of My D&D Character, the series where I talk about a D&D or Pathfinder character that I've created and talk about their inspirations, what kind of items and powers they have, and just for fun even talk about a couple Pokemon they might use and what kind of magic deck I might use for them. Today's subject is my character, Siival Corvidae, so let's dive in. Siival is a character I first played in Pathfinder back in college. In Pathfinder, she's a Sylph Eagle Shaman Druid with the Air Domain. Pathfinder has a lot more subclasses available, and one of the cool things about Druid is that you could get, for example, Druidic Herbalism, or you can get an Animal Companion, or you can pick a nature-related domain straight at level 1. So I chose the Air Domain because it was one of the potential domains that you had to pick for the Eagle Shaman subclass. However, Sylph is currently not a race in D&D 5e, so the closest thing would probably be an Air Genasi, and since Eagle Shaman Druid isn't a thing, probably the closest thing would be Tempest Cleric. It'll make more sense once I explain. My inspiration for her was a hybrid of Janna Windforce and Swain from League of Legends. She's essentially someone with wind powers and electric attacks who has kind of a bit of mystery surrounding her. For Pathfinder as a Sylph Eagle Shaman, my DM allowed me to reflavor eagles into ravens and crows, hence why her last name is Corvidae, after the genus. Her Sylph heritage allows her to speak Orin, the language of air elementals and avian creatures, as well as grants her Electric Resistance 5. Pathfinder does resistance a little bit differently than D&D, knocking flat damage off. Instead of cutting the damage directly in half if you have resistance, if you look at the top of the screen, you may also notice that Siival is listed as a male Sylph name. This is because Siival started off as male. When I came out as trans, though, my DM was really cool and allowed me to transition Siival into a female using a polymorph potion that we found. In that campaign, she started off at level 3 and only made it as far as level 6, so Siival's stats aren't the highest. She has 15 strength, 14 dexterity, 10 constitution, 16 intelligence, 16 wisdom, and 7 charisma. I used these stats to inspire her character, making her very bookish and observant, while fairly shy and not very good with her words. I was fairly new to the game at that time, but she's kind of your basically stereotypical wizard. Think like Caleb Widogast from Critical Role, but because she has a little bit more of a spiritual twist to her backstory, I think it would make more sense to make her a cleric rather than your traditional wizard. As a druid in Pathfinder, Siival could use Wild Shape, but preferred to only do so when becoming birds. At level 6, her air domain granted her 10 more electrical resistance, giving her 15 total. My DM was not very big on using electricity, so whenever that came up, she was basically immune to it. Her main attack was Lightning Arc, a spell-like ability that was granted to her by her subclass. It's kind of like a weak version of Lightning Bolt. She could also summon stronger birds, thanks to her totemic summons, and could even temporarily fly or gain natural attacks in the form of talons, thanks to her totemic transformations. Some of her signature spells included Shillelagh to strike foes with her staff, Burst of Nettles, and Wind Wall. As items went, our DM wasn't really big on giving out special items, but she did have an item called the Fork of Knowledge, which would magically answer questions kind of like a magic 8-ball. She also wore leather armor and carried a bone shield. It was a shield that was made of grafted together bones. I know for D&D standards, having a +2 shield is pretty rare unless it's magical, but for Pathfinder, having a +1, +2, or even a +3 shield is a lot more common. Now that I'm starting to DM D&D 5e, I'm slowly moving away from Pathfinder and starting to learn more about different subclasses for D&D 5e. If I were to play Siival Corvidae today, she would definitely be a Tempest Domain Cleric. This would allow her to heal more, since she was at the time technically our group's healer, as well as she'd be able to gain bonuses to electrical and thunder damage, which was basically her suite of powers outside of summoning birds. Since Siival didn't use her wild shape ability often, it's a feature I'm willing to give up in order to play an overall better character. Most of you who watch my channel know I'm a pretty big fan of Magic and Pokemon, so just for fun, if I were to make a Magic deck for Siival, it would probably be a blue-red deck. She'd have a lot of red spells relating to lightning, and she'd have blue spells relating to clouds and wind, and any creatures that would be in the deck would have to be either birds, electrical or cloud-themed elementals, or even just electric-themed, such as the creature Crackling Drake. Just for flavor, I'd personally want to add Niv-Mizzet the Firemind and Kuranos God of Storms, both to represent her electrical powers as well as her quest for knowledge, because that was her big thing. She wanted to travel the world, learning more about magic, and also to try to find her father, who was her only remaining relative after her mother was killed. If Siival was a character in Pokemon, she'd be a bird keeper for sure, and use Pokemon like Honchkrow and Corviknight to go with that whole crow-raven theme. Just for fun, I'd also probably throw in Zapdos, or potentially Tornadus or Thundurus, just to get in kind of more of that Thunderbird calling the storm kind of feel. Unfortunately, I never actually ended up drawing a picture of Siival, nor did I ever commission one, but I went through Google and found a number of different pictures I think could probably represent her. In particular, this one is my favorite, so I think this one is probably going to be the one I'll go with at the very beginning of the video. So, what do you think of Siival? She was one of my first characters, so she's not super amazing. I also know that this is the first video in the series, so I really appreciate to everyone who's giving this series a try. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll try to make the next one of this series better. The next subject will be of my changeling character, Vayreni. If you enjoyed this video, hit the lunar laser like below, make sure to zap the starshine subscribe button, and boop the moonbeam bell if you want to see more content like this. Until next time, I've been Sylvia-Moonbeam, and thanks for watching everyone.